Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to Lazio Lounge. Finally, the first win of the year, Alison McKenzie. A nice 3-0 against Verona. Obviously, the best performance this year. But, I mean, this is just the third game. But I would say that it has been probably the best match for a while, not only considering the new year. Even in December, we struggled a little bit. So that's encouraging. Obviously, people will say, well, it wasn't Real Madrid, it was Verona. But still, 3-0, a clean sheet. And this is another thing we have to point out because Lazio struggled with a clean sheet lately. So good win, 3 points. Lazio back in fourth position. Everything is good.
What a nice, optimistic start to the podcast, Vittorio.
Yeah, I'm not used to that.
Yeah, no, but I'm not surprised. I mean, it was brilliant. I honestly thought, I mean, like you say, a lot of people who have a more negative mindset will immediately say, oh, it's only Verona. But these are exactly the kind of games that you have to win in this manner. And it's not as easy as it seems to do that. And Lazio have always struggled to do that in these kind of games. So I thought the performance was brilliant. Verona obviously made some mistakes. They had some issues of their own. But in terms of the intensity Lazio played with, the desire they played with, I thought that this looked more like the team we saw in that purple patch 2 or 3 months ago than we have seen for quite a long time. This was like Baroni's Lazio that we all got so excited about at the start of the season. Really nice football to watch. The attacking players, I think, all played well pretty much. Tati might have wanted a goal, which we might get onto. But yeah, terrific performance. And like you say, to crown it with a clean sheet is very, very welcome, considering the one part of the team that was a little bit makeshift was the defence. And the record we had coming into this game wasn't great in that respect.
Before we talk about the game, Alasdair, we have to thank our new patron, Vil Rayarvi. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Thanks for becoming a membership on our Patreon page, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. We have big news for our Patreon, Alasdair. Do you want to tell everybody what we are planning to do going forward?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, I think we should really thank all the people who've been supporting us on Patreon for years and years now, because we've obviously drifted away from it a little bit in recent times, but we're now making a big effort again. So we are offering memberships from $2, $5, and $10 a month. You'll get the same access, regardless of which tier you choose. So it's up to you how much you'd like to support us. But what that gets you now is we've got a dedicated Lazio Lounge community chat room. So at the moment, I think there's about 45 subscribers in there, and you can interact with them and chat about all things Lazio in our private chat room. We will be publishing ad-free versions of every podcast on the Patreon app and website. So if you get annoyed by the interruptions listening to us elsewhere, you can avoid that by subscribing. And on top of that, we're now going to start introducing an exclusive podcast once a month where we do a Q&A episode. So we did one of these last month. Basically, listeners send in the questions and we'll answer them. It will probably be slightly longer. The conversations we have will be more in depth and generally about bigger topics. So we won't be necessarily reacting to everything that's just happened, but talking in more depth about bigger issues as well. So you'll get that exclusive Q&A episode as well once a month as a subscriber. So we're really hoping we can try and keep growing that community and getting as many people as possible in there. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, so remember, if you want to subscribe, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge. Membership starts at $2 a month. And if you subscribe now, you have till Wednesday to post a question, and we're going to be answering you with this new Q&A video. So rush if you have question for us. Obviously, there are a lot of transfer market rumors, the Stadio Flaminio rumors. So there's plenty of things to discuss about. But in this podcast, Alasdair, we have to focus on Verona Lazio. Lazio needed a win. I thought it was a great performance. And for once, we started really, really well, right? We scored after a couple of minutes, which usually was the other way around. Lazio conceding after a couple of minutes. Scoring on a corner kick, that's another big news that this year is completely different compared to the past. Another great Gigot header. I don't know, did we see full display of what Gigot is yesterday? Great header, another stupid yellow card. What's your take on the central defender?
Well, I think I was going to say slowly but surely, but actually it's not slowly, it's pretty quickly. He is becoming my favorite player in this team. I mean, I think you and most of our listeners will realize by now I have a bit of a soft spot for kind of like all-in gung-ho defenders, slightly reckless defenders.
Scottish style, I would say.
And Gigot is definitely cut from that cloth. Yeah, great header within 2 minutes, and then an absolutely ridiculous crunching challenge on the halfway line. To be fair to the guy, though, he was then on a yellow card from about, 10, 15 minutes in. And you're starting to think, wow, okay, this could be slightly dodgy. If Simone Inzaghi was our coach, he'd be warming up Romagnoli already at that point. But he did keep a lid on it, I think. I think he's got the ability to do that. He wants to be as physical as possible. I think the problem for him is that if he gets that early yellow card, it restricts him a little bit playing the way he wants to play, which is being kind of on the edge and being as physical as possible with the opposing attackers. But yeah, I mean, look, I still, I don't think he's a starter in this team, but he's offered more than I expected him to when we first signed him on deadline day. I still think Gila and Romagnoli is our strongest partnership, but Gigot is proving himself to be quite a strong and certainly entertaining option.
Yeah, to be honest, he's been subbed yesterday, and I thought he's been subbed just because he was on a yellow card, and you want to avoid to finish the game in one man down because he get a second one. But yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that was a yellow card, to be honest with you, but it was a silly foul, so you could avoid that. It reminds me a little bit of Wallace, to be honest with you. Probably better player than Wallace, but still, that's the type of level of yellow cards he's getting. But you mentioned Patrick, Gila, Romagnoli. Well, we have concern because we don't know when Patrick is going to be back. Gigot is going to be suspended in Europe League. So we don't have that many options. So Gigot needs to play and needs to play well. I thought yesterday Gila had a terrific game. He's so important for us. Basically, we can play Gila and anybody can play close to Gila at this point if Gila played like that, right?
Yeah, and I think he has been quite encouraging coming into this season. I remember during the season preview, you were saying that he needs to consolidate that because he was definitely the breakthrough player of the year last year. We didn't see that coming, his kind of development and rise after hardly playing any football. But he needed to kind of show that wasn't a one-off and that he could consolidate that kind of form and consistency. And I think he is getting there. He's growing in confidence. I hope not overconfidence, because obviously he's a guy who likes to be on the ball and make those bursts through the midfield to try and kind of turn defense into attack. I think there's always a little bit of a risk of that. But generally, I think he's on the right side of that line. And yeah, I've been really impressed with him. I think he is proving that wasn't a one-off, and he's making himself a really strong option. I mean, we're kind of probably going to work up the pitch here, but I do think we need to give a shout out to Elsad Husay as well, because talking about someone consolidating, he had that great game in the Coppa Italia against Napoli, which we thought might be his only appearance of the season at the time. And here he is back in the squad, not only back in the squad, but playing well. And, it's not like he was man of the match or anything, but you would never have been able to tell if you didn't know that was a guy who'd been, not in a registered member of this squad for the rest of the season. I thought he looked very dependable there.
Yeah, surprised he played all the game because, as you were mentioning, the last game he played with us was the Coppa Italia game. He started. Now with Lazzari out, there's a question, Alasdair. Do you keep Isai seeing how he's playing and remembering that he can play on both sides, left and right, which Lazzari can't. And I like Lazzari, but he's injury prone. In the last couple of years, he's been in and out a lot. So, with the squad we have, with the few players we have available, maybe considering finishing the season with his eye would be a better option than keeping Lazzari in. I don't know. We know that Lecce was willing to sign him, and we stopped because we needed players with Lazzari out. I mean, if you are Baroni, would you push to keep his eye and maybe try to sell Lazzari this winter?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think Lazzari's had a decent season, and he's a kind of player Baroni likes. He appreciates that kind of speedy attacking threat from right back positions. And I think with Husai, he's just unfortunate because of the makeup of the squad. I think what it comes down to, because you're right, it is very handy having that versatility that he can play right or left. But then again, so can Marisic. And the question really is, someone's going to have to go, because for us to bring anyone in, we're going to have to let people go. And when it comes down to it, Husai does still seem like one of the most expendable members of this squad, simply from the fact that we've come this far through the season without really needing him. So I guess that's what it comes down to. I mean, I think it's a credit to him, though, and I think it would and will make it easier for Lazio to sell him. The fact that he has clearly been training well to keep up this kind of match sharpness. He's clearly a great professional, that he's been able to do that, and he's not causing a disruption in the background, or being difficult about being left out of the squad. And he's able to come back in after 6 months and play that level. So I think that would be hugely encouraging for anyone who's considering signing him. If they watched the game last night, they would probably say, well, that's kind of the reassurance that we need, that this guy is at that level. So
yep, I mean, the player who we need to get rid of is Castrovilli. I think that's pretty obvious. Again, he came in yesterday, last couple of minutes. He played the left wing, which doesn't make sense. Let's see if we can find a solution for him, even because I think he wants to play. He's not happy of being on the bench and coming in only when the game is over. But talking about positive sign, I thought Dia was the man of the match yesterday. Great performance, not only the goal he scored, and the assist, well, that wasn't a great assist, to be honest with you. But he's been such a valuable player, right? It's when he's playing like that, Lazio is a different team.
Yeah, and I think him rediscovering that is a big part of why this felt like watching the Lazio team from the start of the season, because him and Tati playing together with Zaccagni, Isaacs on either side, and Ravella Guendouzi behind them, that's like the first choice midfield and attack from this season. But it feels like it's been quite a long time. I've not actually checked when the last time we started with all those guys was, but it feels like it's been a while. And yeah, I was looking at it last night, and I think Dia went 9 games without a goal, pretty much since that international break where that whole malaria story came. He was never really the same player for a while after that, but he seems to finally be back up to speed now and has scored in back-to-back games. Just he's looking a lot sharper, more confident. He looks like the player that we saw towards the start of the season, shows that real intelligence in his movement and the way he works and connects with the rest of the team. And it makes Lazio so much more of a threat when he's playing in that form, because when we started relying a bit too much on Tati to be finishing his chances, that's a difficult road to go down.
We have to talk about Tati, Alasdair, because again, I don't think he played a terrible game, but you're still the number 9 and you have to score. Yesterday, he missed 2 great chances, one in the first half and the other one in the second. On the second one, it could have been a penalty, to be honest with you. But anyway, even if the defender, now I don't remember who it was, took your boot out of, you still have to score from there, right?
Yeah. I think, well, I've said this already, but it has felt like he's kind of slightly regressed into being looking more like the player of last season than the player who started this season really well. And look, he's still really important player for this team. The way Baroni wants this team to work together, they do need a guy up there who's unselfish, who runs the lines, who sets up opponents, does all the hard work, he occupies defenders, and that is all really useful. It's just that final touch, isn't it? And he's still our top scorer this season. I think after Diaz 2, I've not actually double checked, but he's still got a decent return of goals. And I've never thought this season is going to be one where we're going to have a 20-goal striker, but it's not necessarily as important if you can share that out throughout the team. So I'm not panicking about Tati missing a few chances because we're not completely relying on him to finish them all the time. As long as he's still doing enough that the players around him are able to keep contributing, and we've seen Zaccagni score again, and he's having one of his most productive seasons. We've seen Dia rediscovering his form. Pedro's having a great season. So I don't think we need to panic about it, but I'm not convinced at this point we're going to see improvement with it, because it's been 18 months and his finishing has consistently been an issue. It's kind of like the more simple the finish is, the harder the chances of him executing them at times.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's like that, absolutely. You didn't mention Noslin, who is the only player, to be honest, Baroni tried in that position, in the number 9 position, because, I mean, probably we're going to talk it on Wednesday about the opposition, but Noslin, it's true he scored 3 goals in one game against Napoli, but he's the one, I would say, that looked like a number 9 when it's up to finishing, right? When he has the opportunity, he takes it. So maybe we miss Noslin. Baroni said yesterday that he's still not 100% fit, but he was, if he needed, could have played yesterday. I think we miss Pedro and Noslin more than we want to admit, right?
Yeah, and I think Baroni said as much himself. It's been really difficult for him in this period where so few players have been available and he's having to kind of make up the team. Thankfully, he kind of got ahead of that in the way that he'd been rotating the team so successfully up until that. But obviously, we have taken a hit with results recently. And yeah, I don't know. I've just got it up here with the top scorers. So Castellanos and 7. Oh, sorry, this is Serie A, not all competitions, but yes. Tati with 7, Dia and Zaccagni with 6. But we do have so many different players scoring goals throughout the team. But I guess Noslin, if you count that 3 in the Coppa Italia, he's probably overall, I should probably check this before I make this statement, but overall I doubt he's that far off Tati for overall goals in all competitions.
Noslin is at 5 goals, I think. I checked this morning, but I could be wrong.
Having played a lot fewer minutes, I imagine.
Yeah. That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying he could be a very interesting player going forward, right? Because he has that killer instinct. Yeah, he scored 2 in Serie A and 3 in Coppa Italia. So playing, what was it? I think, not that much. So
I've got it here. So Tati scored 9 in 1,839 minutes, and Noslin has 5 in 718 minutes.
Yeah.
So
it's true that he scored 3 goals in one game, so that would be less, but he played 300 minutes less, so that's a big difference, right? The thing I want to point out, Alasdair, is we're missing the goals from our midfielders, right? Because if we take off Vecino out of the equation, Guendouzi and Rovella, they're together combined, I think, 1 goal this season, and it's only Guendouzi who scored so far. So that's probably what we are struggling in. But, if Lazio plays like yesterday, it's going to be difficult to stop us. On the other side, we have to mention that we are fourth, but we are fourth because Milan is struggling massively. Fiorentina, I think they didn't win a game in the last 7. So the other teams, which are fighting for us for the top 4 position, are helping us a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I said to you before we came on, my one concern is that Juventus seem to be pulling themselves together a little bit recently. They obviously can't stop drawing games, but the way they played against Atalanta in that draw was actually pretty impressive, because it's not an easy place to go anyway. And then they played well by beating Milan on Saturday as well. So I I do wonder where things are going to be by the end of this month, because not only do Juventus
Yeah.
seem like they're finding a little bit more form and confidence, but they're also being linked with all sorts of players of a much higher caliber than the kind of players Lazio are being linked with too. And that's going to be hard to keep up. Obviously, there will be a chance of a 5th Champions League spot again, but we can't rely on that.
No.
And fourth, and it looks like it is just a battle for fourth, because I think the top 3, okay, Atalanta have slowed down, but I don't think they're going to be catchable probably.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern is what you said. It's the window transfer market, because I expect Milan, who's struggling massively, to sign a couple of good players. Juventus will do the same. I think pretty much every other team will do it except Lazio. I mean, we have huge question marks, and anyway, we're not gonna sign a player who's gonna change our team, right? I mean, Casadei is a very interesting player, but he's not gonna be a starter. He's not gonna steal the starting job from Guendouzi or Rovella. He's gonna rotate, so it's gonna definitely help. But him and Ibrahimovic are not gonna change everything, right?
Were you disappointed Ibrahimovic didn't play yesterday, or were you expecting it because he's so new?
To be honest, I was expecting him to come in instead of Castrovilli in the last couple of minutes. Let's not forget he cannot play in Europe League. So, his only opportunity was yesterday, I guess. So, yeah. To be honest with you, Alasdair, I'm terrified by the words Baroni said about Ibrahimovic. I don't know if you read it in the press.
Using him as a mediano.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell are you talking about? Are you joking? This must be.
I told you. I said this last week.
A quality mediano. I mean, what the hell is it? Oh, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe it.
It's like they're gaslighting the entire fan base. Yeah. I mean, I've not watched the guy. I should say that. I mean,
nobody did.
I don't know if he can play as a centre mid or a defensive mid or not, because I've not watched him play. But the fact that his entire career experience so far has been as a winger at trequartista, and the fact that he's seemingly a kind of small technical player, makes me think that's not obvious. And like I said last week, even if that is the case, it's going to require a process of development to actually get to the point where he's comfortable and confident playing there at that level. And like I said last week, even a guy like Deli Bashiru, who's more suited to doing that, has needed time and confidence and some bad performances before he's in a position where he feels confident playing there. So it doesn't give me loads of confidence, because it makes it feel like they're already getting the excuses ready for the end of the window when we don't have a new midfielder. That's what worries me.
Well, for people outside Italy, maybe they missed the interview Fabiani did at Lazio Style Channel, and pretty much he said, our car is still with 4 wheels, so we don't need to change them, so we're fine like this. Which I think nobody agrees. He said, well, so far we've been great, so why do we have to change? Well, there's no reason why, if you started well the season, you're going to finish it well. There's no reason why you have to believe that Lazio will keep playing like this. We mentioned that Rovella and Guendouzi are playing every single game, and they're playing just because they have, Baroni hasn't got any other options. And I cannot believe that Guendouzi and Rovella will finish the season, and be so fresh in May and still be. I mean, Rovella again yesterday was the player who ran more kilometers in the game. I mean, this cannot go on for all the season, right? He needs to rest a little bit. So the words Fabiani said were, I don't believe it. I think he's just said to put his hands up and say, if we don't sign nobody, we didn't need it. It's not that we didn't want to. But it's clear that we need that. And I'm not happy. I don't like what Baroni said after the game. He said, transfer market, I talked with Fabiani. He knows what I'm thinking about. I thought he should have been more honest and said, hey, we are shorthanded. We need players. Right?
Well, if you think back, and by the way, I'm not convinced this is true, but if you think back to when Baroni was first appointed, and everyone was very upset, thinking that we were lacking ambition and that a disastrous season was ahead, one of the things a lot of people were saying was that Lotito has appointed a yes man who's just going to go along with what he wants. I don't think that's fair to describe Baroni like that from what we've seen so far. But I don't know if after 6 months he yet feels in a position where he can be going in and publicly making big demands like that.
Is that a big demand? I mean, we have two midfielders.
But it might feel like it to him to be going to the press conference and instead of going to Lotito, going out into the press and saying.
The other thing very discouraging that Fabiani said is that we don't have any Lazio Primavera ready for the first squad, which, it's disgraceful. I mean, it's not that we started a new, a new team now, and, we're starting from scratch, so we need players. We have Bianchessi for 4 years, and he didn't bring a single player to the first squad. Now, this is the third year we have Enrico Lotito, the son of Claudio Lotito, managing the old academy, and in 3 years' time you don't have any single player ready for the first squad. And this time you cannot blame the referee, you cannot blame Gravina, you cannot blame the weather, nothing. It's all your fault, right? So this is like saying, hey, we are not good enough to grow youngsters. He cannot. This news is terrible. Yeah,
and no longer even have the excuse of being in the second division Primavera, which for a while was a clear problem. If that's the experience they're getting, they can't be expected to be ready. I mean, look, I don't know. What do you think about this thing of obviously a few years ago, Serie C started welcoming in kind of youth teams of Serie A clubs. So you've got Juve Next Gen and the Milan team. And so do you think that it would be a more useful route for Lazio to go down? Because this is clearly an issue, because it's been a long time since Lazio have been able to regularly bring youth players in. And a lot of the time we hear that they're just not ready because of the experience they're getting. And the loan system that very, very rarely ends up being, I mean, maybe Luis Felipe and Strakosha are the last two I can think of off the top of my head who went on loan and then came back and got in the first team. But do you think there's any chance Lazio would consider that, or that it would be a good thing to do, to be in the Serie C system rather than Primavera?
Well, it's an interesting discussion. Maybe we should do a pod about that, because
Q&A, Vittorio.
Q&A, definitely. There is. I think there's a huge gap between Primavera and Serie A. So, a lot of interesting, promising players are struggling to adapt to the Serie A. They're not ready coming off the Primavera. So the under-23 makes a lot of sense at that point, right? Because you make them grow in your squad. That is better than send them on loan, because if you send them on loan, there's a chance that club doesn't care and simply don't play them. So it's useless. So the under-23 makes sense. But thinking about Lazio, that's required a lot of money, because you have to sign other 23 players. You have to sign a new manager, a new staff. You have to find a pitch where they can play. So, thinking about Lotito money, it's never going to work. And on the other side, everybody's celebrating Juventus, right? Everybody's saying, Juventus next gen, how many players they pick up, etc., etc. They're getting relegated this year. And if they get relegated, they're finished. They stop. So,
yeah, but it is true though that Juventus in that sense have been a success because they don't really care where they finish in the league. They're not there to have success as a team particularly. It's there to develop players and as an economic way, because you're right, it does cost a lot of money, and that would be my biggest doubt about why that would ever happen with Lazio, is because of the costs involved and the organization involved in setting it up. But then the millions Juve have been able to make in selling off already players who've come through that system, and they'll probably be able to do it again. Bangala or Savona, these guys who've broken through this season, I'm sure they could sell them off for millions if they wanted to at the end of the year.
Absolutely. That's definitely the positive side. What I wanted to finish is, if Juve gets relegated, they finish with the next gen. They cannot get relegated, and they cannot stay in Lega Pro. So I don't know what's going to happen. They're going to have to close the team. So, the other question we have to think about is, okay, if Lazio start the under 20, then Lazio next gen, will they get immediately relegated and finish straight as after year one, or will they be able to keep it up?
Because, why can't they play in Serie D though?
Because that's the rule.
Professional. Okay.
Yeah, that's the rule. So they're struggling. And for example, the fact that Atalanta is getting ready, but they still didn't start it. The fact that Sassuolo said, no, it's too much money. That's the thing you have to consider. Obviously, Juventus have a lot of players. If you were in the Chelsea situation with 48 players on loan, then that would have been an easy thing to do. But thinking about Lazio, do we have 23 players ready? But definitely that's something you have to consider, because the Primavera is not ready. It's not. I mean, I know a lot of fans want the Primavera to win title, but the goal of the Primavera is to bring players to the first squad, not winning titles. And we are not doing it that. So that's the problem.
I think this is perfect subject for one of our Q&A podcasts, to be honest, because we've had a lot of comments in the chat on Patreon as well recently about various Primavera players who people are interested in seeing in first team and whether they're ready or not. So maybe we can do that as a longer discussion later in the week, and we can try and seduce some new Patreon subscribers this way.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have plenty of things to talk about. Even the transfer market of the Primavera has question marks, what we did. But moving back to the first squad, we have to talk about Mattia Zaccagni. Not only because yesterday he scored, he's back after missing the Como game. There have been rumors of him linked to Napoli. Napoli sold Kvaratskhelia, and De Laurentiis called Lotito and say, hey, are you willing to sell us Zaccagni? So there have been this discussion, and seeing how Zaccagni is playing, do you think that would be a good, depending on how much money Napoli is offering you, or he's not for sale?
I think it'd be crazy to sell your new captain, who's having the best season he's had for a long time. Like I just said, your second top scorer in the league. I don't see it happening. He said he doesn't see it happening. I think it would be crazy. And this is Lazio. This is the good thing about Lazio, not just in January, but generally, is that you don't have to get so worried about these kind of rumors, because Lotito's not going to cash in on one of his key players in the middle of the season. He just doesn't do it. I'm sure there are examples. Hernandez, maybe. I can't really think of any others, but yeah, I don't think we need to worry too much about that. I think the one guy I wanted to mention today, because I've somehow not got round to it yet, but you mentioned Dia was your man of the match, and I actually, for me, it was Guendouzi. And I think that we've got so used to the guy by now that I feel like we don't talk to him enough. So I just wanted to give him a mention because I thought he did absolutely everything you want from a central midfielder yesterday. Not just the assist he got, but the way he covered the ground, he made the interceptions, he defended well, his passing was brilliant. I don't think he made a bad pass the whole game, and a lot of progressive passing too. He was running the whole time. I thought Guendouzi was absolutely brilliant yesterday, and it's about time I mentioned him because I feel like we've got so used to just seeing those giant locks, bouncing up and down around the pitch that we don't even mention him that much anymore. But I think he's having a really good season, and last night was a really fantastic performance.
Yeah, and the assist he made for Dia was great. It's true that the Verona defenders was dreadful, but he still was able to recover the ball and pass the ball to Dia. And
he couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
he kind of turned right at the edge of the box, and he just looks up and he's like, "Okay, then." It's just this huge highway of grass ahead of him. It was amazing.
But to talk about Guendouzi, I saw him very tired in the last game against Como. I thought, the fatigue was picking up. And as I said in the last podcast, he started every single game with Lazio this season in Serie A. And last time he was sub was November. So, but yesterday he looked like this was the first game of the year for him. First game, he was completely fresh. He ran, I don't know how much. It was incredible. And I thought great performance. Him and Rovella were great. And we need them. We talked about Zaccagni, we talked about Dia, but the truth is that Rovella and Guendouzi are the secret of this team. If they play well, then usually this team performs. That's why probably we're not looking for a starter in that position, because they need simply to rest sometimes. But I mean, those two players are terrific, really. Baroni deserves credit.
So good that Zanetti changed his midfield, I think, 3 or 4 times to try and find some sort of control, and he just couldn't. It's just amazing what they've been doing so far this year, and thank God, because if they hadn't been good this season, it would have been a very different year so far. I've seen the picture going around quite a lot of Baroni's doing this pre-match huddle, getting the team in a circle before the game and giving them a big team talk on the pitch. And I found that quite interesting, especially, doing it in public and so on. Do you think that was a sign, an intentional sign of being of togetherness, of reminding them of, the importance of the game or whatever? Because they certainly came out with a great attitude in that match, and maybe too much attention is being placed on that moment because it seemed unusual. But what did you think of that?
Yeah, it never happened so far, so definitely something different. And I mean, we will never be 100% sure if that's the reason why we scored after 2 minutes. But I mean, if we go back 2 weeks ago and we think about the start of the derby, the first 20 minutes was terrible. And this is probably one of the first time that Lazio starts well the game. So definitely it had an impact, I would say. So it's encouraging. But I think Baroni has become more and more the leader of this team, and these players trust him a lot. So I don't believe that much in this type of huddles, because a lot of teams does it and they're not on a winning streak, right? So I think once a while has an impact. If you do it every single game, it's doesn't change nothing. Last year, before the warming up, the Lazio player did it every single game, and we had a dramatic season, so it didn't have an impact on the game. But I think this is more a squad, so they're trusting more Baroni, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've really bought into what he's doing, and I said last week before this game, this can be a moment where you draw a line in the sand and you say we can put that difficult part behind us because we've got players coming back now. We've got a nicer run of fixtures coming up, but we have to win this game in order to be able to see it this way, So perhaps it was just a reminder of that, do not take anything for granted here, because this can be a big moment. And he, after the game, Baroni himself called it a crossroads in the season. So,
well, this week is going to be really important. We have Real Sociedad on Thursday and Fiorentina on Sunday. 2 games that can really have a huge impact on our season in Europa League and in Serie A, right?
Yeah, well, we can guarantee automatic qualification. I mean, we should be there, barring a complete disaster anyway, but it would be nice to guarantee that at home. And obviously, as we've explained previously, the higher you are up the standings, the better your chances of success are going to be in terms of the team you get in the next round and being at home and all that kind of thing. So, and also, it would just be amazing achievement, really, to finish top of that group would I think give a degree of importance to this competition that I think we all want to see. We want to make something of this Europa League this year. And Sociedad and Braga, I think, are the last 2 games. Again, not easy, but not impossible. So, and Fiorentina, yeah, I think, I hate to say it, but it's clearly a good time to get them. They are in free fall at the moment, and that has to stop at a certain point. So I don't want to take anything for granted, but clearly they're struggling at the moment, and hopefully we can take advantage of that at home.
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up here, Alasdair. We talked about plenty of things. We still have a lot of things to talk about. So if you have questions, remember next Q&A for Patreons, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge, for subscribe to our membership, and then we're going to be back after Lazio Real Sociedad, and on Sunday there's Lazio Fiorentina. So again, another podcast on Monday. We got a busy schedule, Alasdair. Don't know if we can make it. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, busy times coming up, and hopefully this Patreon news can excite the listeners, and we can get some good questions for later on this week too.
Yeah. Let's hope for. Let's cross our fingers, and we're gonna be back as soon as possible. Well, after Lazio's game, for all the other guys. Thanks again for your support. Thanks for listening. Take care, and we're gonna be back after Lazio Real Sociedad. Ciao, ciao.
Cheers.